We'll wait for a few seconds so that we have more people joining in. Are you all ready for today? Okay, I can introduce you guys to each other. This is Sangeeta, Chris. Kalpana and Chris know each other anyway. So.
Hi.
Hi.
Hope you and your family are safe during this COVID pandemic crazy
Yeah,
thing.
more than COVID, it's the rain now. It's the rain and cyclone now.
Oh yeah,
cyclone, yeah.
You're in Kerala?
Trivandrum.
Okay. I'm from Trivandrum. Oh, we are all Trivandrumites.
We're all from Trivandrum.
Yeah, we're all from Trivandrum.
Okay, we've got 5 people joining in, so let's start. Good evening and a very warm welcome to all our guests to our forum on mental health awareness. This is being conducted by Wiki Karnataka Human Resource Council. A few words about Wiki before we start. Wiki is Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It boosts and builds women's entrepreneurship and business and focuses on women empowerment. It has a collective strength of 250,000 people across 120 countries. Wiki Karnataka is an active enterprising branch headed by Shikha Gupta and Shilpa Pruthi. It contains very ambitious and amazing girls from different walks of life. Our first forum was on technology, which is on our homepage for those who missed out. And keep looking out because we'll be having several amazing topics and forums and activities through the year. Coming back to today, we have with us Chris Venugopal Iyer, better known as Chris Iyer, who's a dubbing artist, an author, a media personality, a singer, trainer, and several other things. Along with that, he's also a clinical psychologist and a hypnotherapist. Welcome, Chris, to our show today.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Thank you very much.
Armed with a post-graduation in economics, a diploma in journalism and mass media, and several certificates in interesting courses ranging from CSR to French, the next guest we have today, Kalpana Sadashivan, set out to explore and figure out a career for herself. She has worn several hats during her career, and she's also the mother of 2 completely mad children. She's also a caregiver to a person with several mental health disabilities, including bipolar and borderline personality. Welcome, Kalpana, to our forum today.
Thank you so much.
Now, how many of us can say at the age of 26 that we've written 2 books, given a couple of TED Talks, traveled across the world representing India for multiple international conferences? Our next guest today, Sangeeta Param, has done all this and much more. Welcome, Sangeeta.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, as you all know, today we have this is the May is the month of mental health awareness, and this particular week is most important for mental health. So we decided, since the awareness about this and the taboo about talking about this is so big, that we shall conduct a forum where we have one person who's battling this illness, a person who's a caregiver, and a person who's clinical psychologist who will talk about this, break some myths probably, and reduce the taboo. What we need right now is to have open dialogues, have conversations, and set up spaces that are more inclusive in the society. So welcome all of you, and let us hope that this is just the beginning of many such conversations.
Yes.
So to start with, Sangeeta, I'd like to go with you. When was the first time that you thought you need to reach out and ask for help?
Actually, when I was really young, I did not know what was exactly happening to me. So every time I thought that something is happening, but I didn't know. I was not educated. I mean, I was not told that there's something called as depression, something called as bipolar. I did not know. I was not aware of something called as mental illness. So the first time I realized that something is like gone completely wrong is when, irrespective of how many times I spoke about it and cried about it, it always kept coming back. Like every memory, every thought, everything just kept coming back to an extent that it reached a saturation level where I wanted to like just give up and end the pain and end the, you know, the monsters in my head, and I just wanted to kill myself. So that was like the break, that was when the whole thing broke apart, and depression word was like, you know, introduced to me and my family, and we started therapy and medication, and like, you know, the whole the whole journey began since November 2014 when the whole thing, like, fell apart. But in a way, it again, the puzzles are like forming together because the whole thing fell apart. Now everything is like joining together correctly.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So, Chris, since your introduction itself, you have had such a very interesting career. What made you or what attracted you into this field?
Uh, Way back in my seventh standard, my maths teacher, his name is Thomas Joseph, he actually used to tell us about paranoia, schizophrenia, all these cases and case studies during his class time so that we don't get bored because math was boring for everyone. So that small talk which happened in the class, it continued when I used to go to his house, listen to more, and kept reading, like while doing my engineering or while I was in media. All those times I kept reading more about it, and that was the time when I understood that no, I need to make it give it a proper concrete shape, and I did my masters. And post my masters, I understood that if you go for a normal therapy, what happens is like 16, 17 sessions, it'll be still on. And people need faster relief and better relief. So then I delved into neuro linguistic programming, emotional intelligence, and came up with hypnotherapy as a good solution because it works out much more faster. So
Right.
that's how I ended up being a hypnotherapist, and I continue being with people who need help, and that really helps me satisfy some kind of an urge which we have in our mind. That also probably is a kind of a longing which you have in your mind.
Nice. Thank you. So, Kalpana, how did you feel? How did you react? And how did you feel when you first found out that your daughter, like Sangeeta Param, is going through something so difficult?
Well, I think it was disbelief to some extent, the difficulty to accept that somebody who was so dynamic and so much of fun had actually the kind of issues that I understood that she has, and that she was going through. There were so many demons in her head, and she was going through hell, which I never saw or never understood. And it was a huge shock. I think it took me some time to, for one, I really didn't know how to react because I didn't know what I'm supposed to say. I was afraid that if I said something, it would be wrong, or it would be hurtful, or it would, it would be counterproductive. So I was in a weird state for a very long time, for a very, very long time. I think it was gradually. Then there was also from her side, there was probably some anger at seeing that nobody is really responding the way she wanted us to respond. But we were all probably in so much disbelief and shock that none of us knew what to do. So
Right.
it was a very arduous journey. I had to get to some level of communication by just talking, and the talks would probably be pretty disturbing. There would be a lot of anger, there would be a lot of frustration, but finally these dialogues went on and on and on. And then I think now there is a place where at least I try to understand. Every day is a learning curve for me because I'm very foxed by human nature as it is, and I really don't understand too much. So for me, when I see something new or some new behavioral trait, then for me it's a learning thing. I have to go back and either ask people whom I know who are in this field what I'm going through, what I'm supposed to do, am I doing the right thing? And I guess my first reaction was one of shock and disbelief and fear and a lot of things, and also to some extent maybe even denial.
Okay. Sangeeta, that brings me back to you. How did you tell your parents? How did you approach them and explain to them what you're going through? Or if they reacted like Kalpana said they did, how did you deal with it?
Initially, I think in a way my brain stopped working and I just gave in. Like, I just started, it was like a whole thing fell apart, and I'm just telling everything, 19 years of whatever I held inside me. I just burst open, and I did not think what they would think, or what I did not think of the environment or what they might undergo. I didn't think that, but I just wanted the whole thing to come out. Like, I was so desperate that whatever is built in me, I wanted to come out. I wanted someone to listen to me, someone to understand that I'm having some issue and help me. I wanted some help. So the first time when my parents kind of like, understood that there's something going on, like when I told them that, look, this is what is happening and I'm not okay, my parents were like, they did exactly like how Kalpana reacted. They reacted in the same way. So they were like, how can a girl like this, who's so bubbly, talks to everyone, who's so positive, how can she undergo something like this? How can she be in pain? How can she be suffering? So it was like a shock to them, because it was like a 360-degree, like, difference from my actual nature to how I felt at that particular moment. And eventually, through, like, it took them a lot of time to understand what exactly is happening. Like, it's like a whole new subject to them. It was a whole new subject to me. So imagine
Right.
what would it be for them? Because I was
Right.
undergoing it, so I was getting some idea about it. They have no clue what exactly is happening. So in a way, they had to educate themselves by, meeting other caregivers, and also communicating with my therapist as to what exactly is happening, and how to deal with when certain things are, like when I react to certain things in a particular way, how to deal with it and things like that. So it took a lot of time to come to an understanding how we can deal with the certain things, so that the miscommunication doesn't happen, and it's in a much more comfortable way. Like our family, in a way, our family came together and we formed, it was a new bond which we formed, where we are able to open up and we are able to communicate with each other irrespective of what is happening. So in a way, it was actually very nice that we all came together. Like, I don't know, if you look at the advantage of it. So
The positive side.
yeah, if you look at a bigger picture.
So yeah, I remember when I had to talk to my parents, and the way Kalpana said she reacted. We had several conversations with the doctor, without the doctor, and they were tiring as hell. So I can just imagine. Another thing, Chris, is when we went to the doctor and I was diagnosed, and we shared this with other people in the family, our friend circle, what we got to hear is things like bipolar or depression or borderline personality disorder. These are just fanciful terms that have become very trendy right now, and they're just names that psychiatrists have been giving to things, and you shouldn't fall for all that. Just keep your mind busy, do yoga, do meditation, and just try to move on. So how do you deal with something like that?
Yeah, the first thing, let me just add on to what all we were listening till now. Now, all this happens because the mind and body are one. Your body reacts to what your mind says. And
Right.
sometimes when you find it different, that is when you understand that your body and mind, they have some kind of a discord. Now, that discord, it attracts a lot of social stigma or a kind of denial, which actually happens with every patient of mine. They don't want to accept that they have an issue. That's the beginning of it. Now, once the person who is having the issue accepts that they have an issue, then the mind starts working in their favor. Now, then comes what kind of help and what to do, because that's the expertise what people look forward from psychologist or psychiatrist or any kind of a counselor. Now, when you go to a person, the names given to all these kind of conditions like bipolar or paranoia or even skepticism, all these things, whatever you call it, these are labels which are done as a standardized labeling system with which you can identify these are the characteristics. That's all. Like the what people told you when you told them that yeah you have a problem. Like when they hear the fancy words, for a common man, these are just fancy words. But for a therapist, like if you have to change a therapist and you have been identified with a particular condition, he knows that these are the issues what you will have, or at least these are the
Right.
spectrum of issues you might have. So, technically speaking, these are fancy words for others, a reason for social stigma to keep the person away, saying that no, that person is like bonkers, or all those kinds of other fancy words come to their dictionary. But again, what we need to understand is that the mind and body reacts to it very badly. Sometimes you see a person put on weight too much, a person suddenly losing weight too much. All these things happen with your mind state. Now, I'll give you a perfect example of like if you have a wound in your finger. Now, we actually bandage it so that the blood doesn't come out, it's protected, it seals properly. Now, that exactly is what happens when you have a mind trouble. When you have a mind trouble, the body tries to add on your body weight. It adds on to your weight, and you put on weight because somehow depression or many kind of mental illnesses, it will be directly linked to obesity. So once you bring your mind back to the normalcy, then you will see that your body started getting happy. Like a happy person will not be very fat. So I'm not saying a
Okay.
generalized statement, but in a mental state of such a condition, yeah, this is one of the side effects. What you will see is that you suddenly have put on a lot of weight. You suddenly started binge eating. You want to have food in the night. These are ways your mind tries to tell your body that, yeah, I need care, I need attention. Now that once you get from a caregiver, that love can actually satisfy everything. It actually works hand in hand. Now, what we need to understand,
Okay.
instead of having these fancy terms, what we need to understand that every person needs care of some sort of the other. Some people need less, some people need more, like food. But when a person needs more care, that is when we say that they have a mental issue. So that is, you need to feed that person with more love, and that'll be fine.
Okay.
I'd like to add one thing, Aisha, here,
Please
and
do.
that is the thing is these are the maybe we shouldn't give too much importance to the names, but the names are there for yet another reason, and this is from what I've heard a couple of people who've gone through problems tell me, and that is that the moment they hear that this has been studied, they also realize that this has help and that there could be a solution for this. Because otherwise, several people going through mental illnesses, I realize, have no freaking clue what's going on in their minds. They just don't understand why they're dealing with voices or why their reactions are different or why they are behaving differently when they should not be. So there is one studied person and there is a person who's behaving instinctively. And there is this huge war that's going on in their head constantly. And when they realize that this is an issue, just like if I have a tummy upset and every day I just keep eating Gelusil, and I keep thinking it'll be fine. I'll eat Gelusil and I'll have my dal chawal every day. I'll be fine, and I don't become fine, and my stomach pain increases. I go to a doctor and he says, no, but this is not just a gas issue. Or this is not an indigestion issue. This is probably something else. Then you know he has a medicine for it, or at least I hope he has a medicine for it. So it makes me feel better that popping this Gelusil all the time is not going to, it makes me feel better to know that there is some solution or a possibility of a solution. Similarly, when these have names like a bipolar or like bipolar or schizophrenia or BPD or whatever else, several patients who go through this, or several people suffering from these illnesses, know that these have been identified. There are people who worked on it. There are possible solutions, or at least there is help. So from that perspective, it's not just a Western fancy thing or Western fancy names like a lot of people have told me when I tell them that Aisha has bipolar disorder or she has a BPD issue. These are also for her to know that yes, I am seeking help. I know that these are understood conditions, and someday,
Right.
sometime, I will get what I want. Thank you.
Right. I think
Um,
the day I was diagnosed was probably the best day in my life. And I'm sure Sangeeta will relate to that
Yeah, I
because,
can second with that because I'm also diagnosed for bipolar and borderline personality disorder. And when those two words were told to me, I was so relieved. Like I'm like, oh my god, there are two words for it because I could feel that like there's a whole new family out there who can understand what I'm going through and what I'm feeling is not something I am developing in my head because all this while when I used to express it to people they told me that oh it's all in your head, you are just creating something big out of something small. So when I got those reactions it started like making me feel bad. And when the therapist told me that look, you have this, these are the symptoms, these are what, this is what is the therapy for it, this is how you deal with the whole thing, there are books based on this, you can read about it. So when that happened, I'm like, oh my god, what I was thinking is not at all true. There is something out there, and I felt so relieved that okay, I never felt bad that I got tagged by by these terms. Like every time someone tells me, don't tag yourself, don't make yourself feel bad that you have such kind of a tag in your. Don't ever tell people that you have things like that. It's very sad. It's very victimizing when they tell all those things. I'm like, it was the happiest day of my life, and you're telling me not to talk about it.
I completely agree. It was so refreshing, relaxing to know that without you having to articulate it, people understand what you're trying to say. So it's very
Right.
easy to talk to people who are going through similar problems. Not
Yes.
problems, similar conditions.
Yes.
Conditions. Yeah, that's the right word to use. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, conditions. So, Chris, what are the signs we can look out for? For example, Sangeeta was diagnosed when she was 18 or 19, I believe,
Yeah.
and mine was in my late 20s, mid 20s. What are the signs we can look out for? Because I've seen that over the past 10 years, the progress I've had has helped me. I mean, my age has helped a lot in the progress. So, what are the signs we can look out for so that it can be diagnosed early in life and things don't reach as bad as they do? Like for me, I
Okay.
had to reach a
Now,
breakdown.
here, are we just limiting our topic to depression, bipolar, or borderline personality, or any particular condition, or generally, if you look at it, there are a few things which you need to understand that all these conditions, whatever you people call normal, are conditions put forward by people saying that these are normal stuff. Now, when a
Right,
person actually deviates, probably if you look at the greatest artist, he might be dyslexic, he might be having depression, he might be having a lot of issues. Now, these are conditions which are against the social norms. So,
right.
this is something which is actually said by a lot of people and saying that
A
this is
social
how life.
construct.
So, there is no constancy in this because the society keeps changing, people keep
Right,
changing, and this is
right.
just a state of mind. And you understand that you're away from a group of people who say that they are normal. Now, from the perspective of a person who is actually having a depression, or a person who's having a bipolar, or any kind of issue for that matter, he would actually see them as having problems, not themselves. Till the moment you realize that it is me who's having a little issue, and that too, I'm against the social norm or a set of people saying that they are normal. I'm opposed to that. No, that is just the thing which we have to understand. That actually puts to ease that you're not you're not having a mental issue. It is just a deviation from a norm which was created by people. Now, many years back, a discussion about, say, a gay or a lesbian would be considered totally out
Just
of
a sec.
the world.
Just a sec. Chris, there's a
Yeah.
lot of feedback coming. There's a lot of echo and things like that. Ice,
Uh-huh.
is that a problem? Because I'm hearing delay and I'm hearing an echo and everything.
No, I'm hearing an echo as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I think. And now, how about now?
Sangeeta, can you mute your? Huh, okay. Now it's better.
Okay. So a few years back, if you actually talk about, or if a movie talks about, or a book talks about a gay or a lesbian relationship, or anything which is against the norms of the society, which is considered normal, or a person marrying a person of the same age, that was considered something very against the society. Now, is
Right.
that a mental aberration? Yeah, that is a mental aberration for them. Now, similarly, whatever aberration what we are seeing now are probably traits of a person, and I respect that. Probably that is what makes them a good writer. That's what makes them a good singer. That's what makes them a special person. If you actually notice, after the advent of these kind of reality shows which happen on TV, you will find those people who are having some kind of an aberration. They sing so well, they have a faculty developed because they have some kind of a deviation from the norm. So I would actually consider this as, yes, you first thing is to accept that it is just a mental condition. It is just a state of mind for the time being, and the mind is something which you can get hold of very easily, which is considered so very difficult. And after seeing my patients and the way they react, I do understand that the mind is something which is very, very, very similar to a little child. You scold you scold that child, and the child goes really berserk. If you actually, with care, take care of the child and take it into confidence, then the mind actually works so well. This is probably said in Bhagavad Gita, where they say, Uddare Atmanatmanam, Natmanam Avasadhayet, Atmaiva hi Atmano Bandhu, Atmaiva Rupuratmana. It actually talks about you are responsible for your rise and fall because you can be your best friend and you can be your worst enemy. Now, that actually, we are talking about the mind where, at a very young age, when the mind is not given enough care, now the mind starts reacting. And that reaction is what we see as an aberration later on in life. Now, going back in time and correcting it in the childhood is not possible. That is why we go through a series of processes, we go through treatment facilities, and we have to go through the ordeal of getting it corrected. Now, that is the main thing what we have to understand in such conditions. It is the stigma which was a problem earlier. Now, people are coming forward and saying that, yes, I'm having a depression. One of my patients who even felt like harming her own child, that was mainly because of depression. So these are conditions which could be because of many reasons. Find the reason. We actually need to treat the reason and not the patient,
So,
and that helps a lot.
sorry, I have a question on that. What you said about
Yeah.
the childhood issue and all that, that is, I would say something like borderline personality disorder probably can be
Yes.
explained that way. But bipolar
Yes.
has a very chemical imbalance in your body. It's a lithium
Yes.
imbalance in your body. So you
Yes.
are
Yes.
supposed to take medicines for it, right?
Okay. Now, I recently read an article about a particular person who was actually convicted and was about to be given capital punishment. And
Okay.
doctors actually took the patient and like requested the court that they need for a research. And what they did was put him in a chair and tied him up and put a snake in front of him. Now he got scared and he was like shouting a lot. So they blindfolded him and put the snake again. And in the meanwhile, when he was not seeing, they actually poked needles in his leg as if the snake had bit. Snake bit him, right? Now, the postmortem revealed that exactly the body has the same snake's poison. Because the scare, what the mind can do is very, very, very dangerous. Whatever condition you believe you have, the body creates the. That's why I said the mind and body are one. It's the whatever your mind says, the body will react that way. So the lithium imbalance, why does it come? The reason is somewhere deep rootedly the mind has a issue and it is creating that lithium. Yes, it can be treated with medicines. There are a lot of conditions where you need to numb the person, and many tranquilizers are given. All these things just aid the facility, but it actually does not cure the condition. The cure is actually
Right.
going to the reason and finding it out and curing it.
Okay.
Now, even writing, the best form of catharsis, or say painting, or even any kind of art, it actually helps. It has been helping a human since time immemorial. That
Right.
actually takes out the kind of pain you have inside. So, if you find a great writer, he would have had multiple conditions. That is what he was trying to write it off, or probably
Right.
as a painting or as a song.
Yeah, there's something called the Club 27, which I've scared my mother with. There are a lot of artists who committed suicide at the age of 27. So when I was 27, I kept scaring her the entire day, year, saying that I'm still 27. So,
No, even there is a song called "Gloomy Sunday," which people say that many people listen to it and committed suicide. It is all the state of mind. Yeah,
yeah, right.
God.
it is just
Uh,
the state of mind.
Yes,
Aisha, I'd
Kapil.
like to add one thing. As a parent who's much older, um, there are lots of these small signs that we see in children, which we tend to neglect and ignore. We think like, oh, maybe the child is moody, or maybe the child is just fabricating something. Also, there is another part of it, and that's coming from being a parent who was a working parent. So you're so caught up in multiple things today. Women and today parents themselves are playing multiple roles. You have to be good at home, you have to, you have to continue to run the home, you have to continue to look after, do well in office. And in the midst of that, somewhere I think, yeah, I know it makes me feel bad to say that, but somewhere maybe attention is slightly deficit. So if you see that the child is being moody or something like that, I think it's time to take cognizance of the fact that there could be a problem, not that there always will be a problem. Maybe the child is quiet by nature, but sometimes we tend to ignore it by just dismissing it. So if you see signs, just pay attention to it and see, if is it a pattern. Is it one off? Then forget it. If it's not one off, it's if the child prefers, say, let's say the child doesn't like somebody coming home, or the child is reacting weirdly to somebody, or the child gets angry when you say a particular thing, not everything, a particular thing, then I think it is time for the parent, just stop, ask yourself questions and watch. Sometimes we don't do that because we're so caught up. Every day is like a mad rush. 24 hours are not enough. Maybe we should just stop and say that, let me prioritize. This is this child's future. So maybe even I am guilty of not having seen something when you probably would have, rushed off and just sat quietly somewhere. I'd have thought maybe by nature you're a quiet person who likes to read more. Maybe I should have paid more attention then. So it is important, and I don't want that other people go through this. So please, if you see something that's different from the child's regular behavior, or if you see that the child is reacting in a particular way to a certain thing frequently, then maybe seek help. Yeah.
Yeah, Aisha, if I may add, you were
Sure.
asking about the signs to look for. Now, what Kalpana said, like even if it's a one-off case, like one-off incidents happening, if you pay attention, you will get to the reason of it. Now, many parents, they just don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Now, earlier, the family had grandparents, they had
Mm.
uncles, aunts, everyone together. So someone will notice that, and that care or the attention what they needed, it was given so easily. But these days, the condition of mental evolution is increasing just because we don't have those big families to take care of. We don't have those one-off cases to be identified. We don't get to see the pattern. Now, as she said, if it's a pattern forming, there are parents who don't even see that there is a pattern. It is they have to shout out saying that, yeah, I am having a pattern, please look at it. So that condition is needs to be addressed. It is not the accepting a person who is already having a mental condition. It is accepting a child as it is. Then we won't have those mental conditions. It all boils down to like about 60% of the conditions boil down to parenting issues. If you actually see the number of patients going to the hospital after the post-COVID time, the number of patients have come down. Why? Because 82% of illnesses or the conditions what people complain are psychosomatic. They don't need to go to the hospital. People complained of heart attacks, people complained of stomach issues, everything every day. Once COVID crept in, you find hospitals are empty. What happened? All of them died? No, they are all alive. Now the mind is fighting some other war. So the distraction, what happened, has changed the mindset, and it has changed a lot of people's illnesses, and what they used to complain has come down. So I would like to say that not just a pattern. See every issue with your child. Talk to the child.
Yeah.
Be with the child. At least this is the best time you can talk to the child and find out like what he needs. What is the issue? Now, if you openly talk, there are many conditions like in case of an abuse, they are not able to talk to the parent because they don't get time or they don't get the opportunity. Now is the time where you take time and make it a practice that you talk to the child every day. Earlier, there used to be conditions where the child comes back from school and tells everything what happened in school. Now, where do parents have time to talk, hear all that? They say, oh, you started yapping, go and study. That is not the condition what you should have at home, where you should have 2 ears God has given you. Listen to twice and speak once. Like you have only one mouth and 2 ears. So you listen twice and speak less. That is what probably he's trying to tell us.
I wanted to add in something. When it comes to parenting, like as a daughter, like I'm not a parent, but when it comes to parenting, I always think back and say that parents are not given a manual that this is what you're supposed to do during parenting. So they're not given a manual. But if you look back, when we are children, like when we are babies, every parent talks to each other and finds out, did your baby turn, did your baby crawl, when was the time they started eating. So every time they cross check with, like they talk to each other, they communicate with each other. But as the child grows, parents don't talk to each other about the children, and they only talk when there is something proud to say. Oh, my child won first prize in singing and all that. But when it comes to some insecurity or something, like is there some type of difference? What do you think?
Yeah.
How did you experience your child's teenage and things like that? No communication happens between two parents who are having two teenage children. So that's what happened to my parents also. I'm the older child, so I feel my life is an experiment to my younger sister. So it was like my parents think that however I reacted during my teenage was teenage blues. So they were able to keep an eye on my sister when she was a teenager to see whether she has the same reaction like I do. So I think that is also there, where parents also should not feel that they will be judged, or they couldn't communicate regarding what's happening between their children. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to
What happens to a Sangeeta? I'd like to tell you as a a person who is seeing the parents as well as the children. Many parents, what they are trying to have in their children is what they did not get. I was not able to become an engineer, so my child should be an engineer. I did not get to sing, so my child. Probably that child does not want that at all. It is lack of listening which has happened. So I did not go and play outside, so my child also should not go and play outside. So these kind of rules they form themselves has to be broken, where every parent needs to understand that what is best. Like they put themselves in their child's shoes and think, then things are much better because there is no manual. Every person is unique, and the only thing what they need to do is listen to the child. Many a times we don't get a chance to do that, and there are many parents who come here and talk, and then only they understand or realize that things have gone wrong to a great extent. If they had done it at home, they need not have to come to me. Like I'm a law student also now. I tell the day when I don't have a client in law, the day when I don't have a patient in being a clinical hypnotherapist, that is the best day in my life. It is not that me making money, but that shows that the world is perfectly fine and there is no mental liberation.
Nice.
There is another thing, and that is when it comes from what this is to take off from where Sangeeta said. When your child is small, you're only comparing physical things like did it turn at the third month or did it get its tooth and all that. Those are all not, those are all physical things, and people are okay with that. As they grow, like Chris rightly said, people foist their frustrated dreams onto their children. One, two,
Yes.
the world is very competitive. Everybody thinks they're perfect. I remember when Aisha didn't want to take engineering, the shock was more not because Aisha was not taking engineering, but because that she was not doing her entrance. The shock was that she's a scientist's daughter. So I said, maybe I'm her mother and I'm stupid. So maybe she's like me. So I cannot understand why they have to compare people, whether it's in the family, outside the family. There's this constant strife that goes on in a child's mind when it is compared. And from a parent's perspective, I know when people have asked me when my children were learning the mridangam, why I did not put them on stage. I didn't put them on stage because they were learning because they wanted to, and they never asked to go on stage. And I didn't think that they were that competitive. They were learning because they liked it, full stop. It ended there. This over competitiveness and that feeling of guilt or feeling of deficiency or feeling that something is wrong with me if my child has not stood first is something that first needs to be changed. And it is that which keeps people from saying. So if I have to go and tell people I am being judged, if I say my daughter is bipolar, it's first looked at like, what's wrong with you? So people don't say things. I know people who tell me, don't say this about her. So I said, no, I want to make this a normal conversation. I want this to be like saying I have a headache or I have a tummy upset or I'm not feeling well because I can't breathe properly. I have an allergy issue. I want this to be as normal. The brain is another part of the body, and if it needs to be treated, it needs to be treated. So we're going to look at me with that lens saying, has something gone wrong with Kalpana? Go ahead and do that. I don't mind it. But it is important. So when parents feel guilt, two, they feel they're too perfect to have something which is imperfect. I have seen people try to hide deficiencies that their children have and try to foist perfection on that child, which is such a big burden on that child and on everybody around and even the parent herself or himself, that this just compounds the whole problem. It aggravates it. So we need to realize that each one, me, my partner, my children, my neighbors, my siblings are all unique. And that this concept
Yes.
of perfection, what is perfection, what is perfect, it doesn't exist. You're perfect in the way you are. I'm a perfect Kalpana, you're a perfect Chris, she's a perfect Sangeeta, and she's a perfect Aisha. Just go ahead with that. So when parents are afraid, like when once they cross the age of 4 and they start going to school, every child cannot come first, so somebody will come second, somebody will come third. That's when parents stop comparing, stop sharing news. So what is your what rank has your child got first? Oh, okay. My kid, yeah, I did well because it's not first. Why don't you just say, my kid did well, it came fourth or came 10th or came 20th? Or maybe the child doesn't like to study also. It's not like
It
everybody in
failed.
this world. Yeah, many people may hate to study. I mean, why don't you say my child draws very well? No, but you'll try and beat the child and make it do physics or maths or whatever. It's this constant rat race, the comparison, the competitiveness, which moves into rivalry. It's not just competition. Competition can still be positive. It's rivalry that keeps people from from sharing this kind of news. And then it becomes
And
a taboo. then it becomes a stigma. Because you're not
Right.
doing it, then there's something wrong with it. Then I mustn't do it. And then it just gets compounded into something really
Right.
nasty, which is what it has happened today. Yeah,
Right.
thanks.
Sorry. I wanted
Um,
to ask Sangeeta. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to add to that. Like, I had given a talk in a school. So, a few students came to me. Like, these are 10th standard, 12th standard students. So, 10th and 12th, so they're facing boards. So, they come and tell me that tomorrow is parent teacher meeting and I don't want to go home with my report card because these are ICSE students and they are, like, already so much to study. And during their this was during their preparatory exams and stuff, so they're like, we have to take our report card to our parents and we're scared to go home, what to do. So there's so much of fear instilled in them. First of all, there's also fear from parents, secondly from peer group. Like, like, indirectly you start feeling insecure, not just with the marks and stuff. There's so much more you feel insecure, because that is when you enter teenage, and there's so much more in the head. The marks is one thing, then I'm fat, I'm thin, I don't have many friends, you have many
Right.
friends, I don't have a boyfriend, you have a boyfriend. Like, like, so many things come into picture. And when parents put in the marks thing also, because the only pride the parent has in 10th and 12th standard is if you get above 90%. That's all they ask. Every parent has faced that thing during 10th and 12th from the whole world, that how much did your child score? And it has to be above 90%. Otherwise, like, you're looked down upon as a parent. Not, the child is, like, secondary, but as a parent you're looked down upon that you have not taught your children properly. Yeah.
To go back to what
Uh,
Chris said, it's because some people have defined a certain thing as
Yes,
normal or perfect. It's
norms.
a template that they've created, and they want everyone to squeeze everyone into that template. They want everyone to
But
fit
the
in somewhere or the other.
sad thing, Kalpana,
right.
what happens is these days, parents, uh, they are at least opening up. There was a time when, in between, parents were not expressing what they felt for their child. They probably, inside, in privacy, they will talk, wow, our like son or daughter is doing so good. But why don't you tell that to your child? At least that child will get happy. Now
True.
that is being
Right.
denied, and that creates so much of issue within that conflict in the mind that I did my best and nobody said anything. Right?
Right.
Acceptance, recognition, beyond comparison, life beyond comparison. These are things what a child looks for. Don't compare
Right.
me with another person, because a dog cannot be compared to an elephant, elephant cannot be compared to a monkey. We are all
Right.
different. So
It's true.
we compare, creates an issue. We don't express our heart. If a person, a child is drawing good, a person, they start saying that every time what you're doing is sitting and drawing. Don't you have something to study? And start scolding. That creative mind dies
Right.
there. What others will say, the one sentence which has killed so many people. And the same thing with mental illnesses. What others will say, that statement has killed a
Most are
massive number of
searching
people
game.
more than any kind of infection. Any
Right.
kind of infection, I would say.
This is
And
really
also,
exciting.
when parents are faced with the question that, okay, your child has something wrong, first thing my parents reacted was, don't tell anybody about it, don't tell any of your relatives about it, don't post on social media, don't talk about it, because it's such a, like, something which is a secret. You're not supposed to share anything to the world. After a while I became, that itself is a pressure in your head that you're not supposed
Yes.
to even talk about it. So
So
that
that's
itself,
something, Sangeeta, I wanted to ask you. Um,
yeah.
you have a normal life, as in a, how do I explain this? A very social construct normal life happening parallelly. You have a job, you are taking a course, you're studying. How do you manage? Because on some days I understand depression and mania are really bad. How do you manage being in a office where people most probably don't understand the situation, and there is a lot of taboo talking about it as well?
Yeah. To be honest, my office people did not believe or did not understand that something called depression exists. Okay. They did not know there's something called depression. So when I was initially diagnosed, it was very obvious because I started taking leaves. I started breaking down even during office hours and things like that. So it became very obvious. So people started talking behind my back that I had a breakup with a boyfriend I never even knew I had. It was because I joined work at a very young age, and they just because I must have not scored marks. So they made up their own stories to start believing that these are the things which made me like this. And after a while, I started speaking about it publicly. I started expressing, I started talking about what is the definition of depression, what is the definition of bipolar. And when I started talking about it publicly, the people in my office, the colleagues, started understanding that, okay, this is something real. Otherwise, she wouldn't be talking about it randomly, Otherwise, she wouldn't be talking about it. Articles wouldn't come. She wouldn't be talking about it in platforms and things like that. So there's something like this which is real. And during offices, I definitely break down. I'm not like a perfect human being, but I do have mood swings and stuff like that. And when I go into like a very low state during office, I do break down. Like, I sit at my desk, I cry, and I do it very shamelessly. I do not care about what people are thinking about me at that moment, how they're going to respond, nothing, because at that moment my health is important. My I need to vent, so I'm venting.
Self
So
care.
yes, self-care. So I just went, I cry, and I just wait for it to pass. So when I went and cry, it's a way of coping, right? So it passes
Nice.
eventually, and then you go on with your work. So it's just like that.
This is very interesting, but we are running out of time, and we have a few audience questions. There's a question from Ankit to Kalpana. As parents, even mothers and fathers don't often have a synced up approach to parenting, and therefore admitting deficiency of their kids can be a very big issue. How do you manage both the parenting conflict?
Uh, if the question is about parenting this child together, I'm a single parent, so I have no problem actually. So it's just me dealing with it and the child. One thing I'd like to say that there are times when I myself am confused, and as a caregiver, there's a lot of stress on me also, and I have to take care of myself, which often I cannot do. So I
Right.
myself go for therapy once in a blue moon. It is okay to do that because there is a third party, a neutral person who knows their subject, whom I can talk to, and who doesn't have any axe to grind over here. So I am sometimes given advice which has stood me in very good stead. So I myself go for counseling once in a blue moon. But as a parent, since most of the time that this happened, I was a single parent, I really don't know what it means. But I'm sure that my partner, Aisha's father, wouldn't have had a problem because in several things we are quite synced when it comes to this. So I don't think we would have had a problem. Because right now, when we do discuss it, I don't think we have such a big problem. We are on the same page. So it is important for us to have our dialogues also, and it is more important than the dialogues. I think we need to first flush away our egos, flush away all the taboo stories that we've been told, start on a clean slate and say that there is no template I want to fit into. This is a new situation. I'm going to blaze my
So
own trail, and it's different
on
for
that,
everybody. Aisha's example cannot be given to somebody else, and I cannot say,
True.
please help her because this is what I did. It may not work. So you have to blaze
on
your own
that,
trail.
um, given all the stigma around society, it's become difficult for the parent to open up or even talk about all this, right? So, how do you differentiate between, more often than not, it's just tagged as mood swings or the nature of the child. How do you differentiate between what a symptom is and what a sign, as in what a, wait, how do you understand the difference between symptoms and signs and whether it is just the person being a little moody or off or anybody? Chris or
That should
Yeah,
be that
yeah,
should be
yeah.
for Chris.
Yeah, one thing when it is going beyond the normal state, like if a person is not, without any reason, starts crying or starts breaking down, yeah, that needs to be given attention. But if you scold the person and the person is crying, that is just being normal. But again, there is another extreme to it. Like once you identify, you
Mhm.
don't overcare. Also, being a caregiver, you don't overcare also to an extent where the person actually feels that I'm more sick.
Yeah.
Don't
Right,
keep saying that, don't talk to her, she's depressed, don't do this, don't do that. That actually creates more issues than solving a problem. It is accepting a
right,
person, which what we need. The society actually needs to remove the stigma, not create another
right,
stigma by
right,
saying that no, they are mentally having a challenge.
right.
I
Another
need. I wanted to put
yes,
in
yes.
something else also. My parents underwent therapy. Like, my they were open about it, and they went and they sat and they did speak to the therapist about how to deal with things, how we should behave as a caregiver. Where should we draw our boundaries? Like, it is important that they also learn how to draw boundaries, because as a
Right.
child, they always, even though I'm 26, they'll always feel I'm a kid to them. So that motherly love, fatherly love will extra pour even when you're crying. You can't do anything about it. So
We can't
it's
help it either, Sangeeta.
huh?
We can't help it either. I do
Exactly. So
that with Aisha.
so it's exactly like that. So they also educate like when how to draw their boundaries. It's very hard for them also, but in a way it's nice that they know. And another thing is I understand that Google is very nice, but I don't think
Yeah.
people should like Google what is depression. And also there are so many unnecessary things like how do I know if I'm depressed? And there are some tests like online, and they score you 9 out of 10. So you shouldn't like randomly take tests and find out if you're actually sad or you're actually depressed. It doesn't make any sense. So if you actually feel you're feeling that helplessness yourself, or if you find out that somebody is struggling, I think it's better you talk to someone who's actually a professional rather than going to Google and finding out what exactly might be the reason.
Another
Okay.
one thing I wanted to add is that keep talking about it. I know
Yes.
initially people will say stuff, they will say weird things, and then they will keep saying it. But I've noticed that maybe I'm fortunate. I've met several people, several of my cousins, who would wonder what I'm talking about when Aisha doesn't join us for family functions and things like that. Some of them have very sweetly gone and understood it, read about it, asked me for information. I've given it to them, and they're the most supportive. In fact, as a caregiver, I need support, and that's my support. So I can stay strong because I have this beautiful body of my sibling, my several friends, my children, my own son, my daughter-in-law. All of them were very supportive because they have taken the trouble to understand what this is. So this came only with constant talking. Going on
That
saying
is
bipolar.
something I
Initially, they would
completely
think I'm just, making a drama out of it. It's a naughty. But finally, they did start going and reading up. I have a lot of support, and that support is important.
nice.
And that support comes because I talk about it.
Very nice.
That is very
Couple
true.
of
And yeah, and another thing is people think that if you tell that we'll get married and stuff like that, every problem is solved. So every relative has that mindset that marriage and children will solve every issue. Everything will be solved once you cross that education level, and if something mental illness happens, the solution is marriage. And post that, if still doesn't
Absolutely.
solve, have a child. Everything will be sorted at that moment.
Yeah,
No.
that's
Okay,
that comes
just to go through a
from that whole helplessness, no? That
set of questions
they
quickly.
don't have answers.
Um, yeah.
These are standard answers which help. Yeah.
Does diet and exercise help with coping with symptoms? Yes, it does. One of the side effects, any side effects of medication on other hormones of the body, yes, it makes you put on a lot of weight, which has happened to
To
us.
me as well, yeah.
Yeah, to both of us. Another thing is, I was on medication for one issue, which led to another issue because long-term use of that one medication caused another problem. So yes, that does happen. And for things like weight gain, and
Okay,
even just for,
one sec. Aisha, I have a question
yes.
here for Chris. There is a tendency that a lot of people with issues who are on medication have, and that is sometimes they suddenly decide to give up medication because they think they're fine. And I have seen the ill effects of that. How can we prevent that from happening, or what can be done to make sure that the person continues to be on medication?
The reason why a person stops medication is because probably they have lost faith in that. So it is a question of faith, and it's a question of how well you make the person understand. Like you have a wound, you have to have a medicine. That is a need. But if a person is strong enough to counter that, yes, probably it might work. But if it's not a person is not strong enough, then the faith has to be brought back. The faith in the therapist, the faith in the treatment, the faith in the medicine has to be brought back. Otherwise, this is just a condition which is going to be just like that.
Yeah, I
And
completely understand. I've given us medicines.
another thing to add about medicines is that if you tell somebody you're taking psychiatric medication, first question they'll ask is how long do you have to take it? They think it's like an antibiotic course, you have to take it for 10 days. Secondly, if you tell you it's for a long time you have to take it, they'll be like, what will happen to your kidneys? What will happen to your liver? You will have so many side effects in the future. You're still so young. How can you take so many medication? So it build like it'll put in your head like so many unnecessary questions, which is dealt by all this. When the society starts questioning all this, another reason to it haunts you and tells you, why should you take? You can deal with it by yourself. All these years you dealt with it. No, one few years you took medicine. Now you can deal with it by yourself for the rest of your life. So you get that overconfidence, like, which is at the end of the day harming yourself.
Right. Um,
Aisha,
Kalpana,
also one
what
more
does
thing. If anybody in the panel or there were any questions, people can always reach out afterwards. So just give our mail IDs or whatever it is, because maybe
yeah,
we may not have answered somebody sufficiently clearly, and they may have doubts. They can always clear
right.
it one on one. Yeah.
Right.
Thank
My
you.
son has a very strong personality. It becomes very difficult to make him do something. How do I handle it? Normally, I end up shouting. Chris, so Kalpana, I think this is for one of you.
Chris.
Yeah, I think Kalpana is the right person to answer, but I'm saying shouting at somebody will never get things done. It is the reason why it should be done, just like I said, the faith building. If a person, you're telling that you have to do this, at least you should be in a position to tell that person why you have to do it. And that better be a good reason. Otherwise, it won't happen.
Yeah, yeah. There is one more thing. There are two things, in fact. One is that I myself used to be a very short tempered person. I think I learned a lot of patience from my ex husband. And the second thing is being honest with the child. I learned that when I have 100 things on my plate and I really don't have the time today to listen to you right now because I have a deadline and I have an article to go, I would tell Aisha that I'm not angry with you. I just have a timeline. So give me half an hour. Don't come to my room and disturb me. I will finish this and I will talk to you. It worked because she
It
realized
works.
that this, yeah, it worked with both my son and my daughter. They would come and ask, will you be angry now? I mean, as children, they would say, now will you be angry if I say something? I'd say, no, now I'm free to talk to me. But when I explained to them that the anger was not against them, but it was against the timelines that I was running against, the cooking on one side, the curries on the gas, I'm finishing an article, I'm doing research,
Right.
I'm also have an MC, I have an program to MC in the evening. And Chris, as an old friend, knows what I have gone through. So it used to be very difficult. And I would obviously just fly off the handle. Then I realized a friend of mine called Elizabeth once told me that they don't know that you're not angry with them. You need to tell them. And I think that was the best advice I ever got. So I told them, I'm not angry with you. I'm just not able to keep control of time. So just give me 5 minutes and I'll be done. And that worked beautifully.
Okay.
Most
We're
of the
running out
time,
of time right
parents.
now. Yeah, please go ahead.
Most of the parents kind of like, at the end of the day, when children tend to like, reach, like, they do at the end of the day, like, pinch the parents, they push them to the level of expressing the anger when they're already, it's like built up from the day, from when the day starts. It's like so many responsibilities. By the end of the day, the parents are also exhausted, so they end up venting their anger on the children. So there are many times that has happened to me also. But in my case, I rebelled. I yelled back at the parents. I shouted. I did the exact same thing. And another thing was, when they told me don't do this, I did the exact opposite. I went and did the things which they told me not to do, to make myself prove a point that your anger is like, it is hurting me, but I don't care. Like, I just want to make you even more angry, and I want to, like, that is my way of coping and my way of expressing to you what I am going through. So I think as
I'd like to add one thing to Sangeeta. Parents should actually practice to tell the children what to do and not what they shouldn't do.
Not to do.
Because the mind also is the same thing. You don't tell your mind that I don't want to be angry. Then you will be angry, confirm. You want to
Right.
tell your mind that you want to be peaceful. That's the positive affirmation you need to give your body.
So I'm really sorry. This was a very interesting conversation, but we're running out of time. So there's one thing I'd like to say. Having been a person who's gone through this for a really long time, and seeing the change that has come in the relationship I have with my family and my caregivers, I think conversations are the most important.
It is.
Whenever you're fine, whenever you're feeling good, please talk to the people in your life. Please talk to your first circle, your friends, your family. Make them understand. Make them explain to them how it is when you're not okay, so that they'll be there in the way you want. And like Chris said, they're not overdoing their love and concern for you, because that'll just make you feel worse, or rather, it'll give you an incentive to act like you're worse, so that you'll keep getting more and more affection and love, which is
We don't
just
we
going
don't give
to...
you don't give crutches to a person who's having a sprain in the leg.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
neither do you ask them to walk it off. So
Yeah.
don't tell people use your head to become all right because the head is what is giving us. So
Also, one more
Another,
thing,
what's
when
your
you're
view
having
on
yeah.
this?
these, sorry,
Yeah.
when you're having these conversations, you shouldn't feel that I need to close this argument or close this thing today and I need to prove what I said is right. Just leave it at some point, go back, revisit it. It took us several conversations to get to where we are today. And at the only thing we decided at the beginning was however much we may disagree with each other, the love will not reduce, and we agree to disagree. We are two distinct individuals, unique individuals. We cannot agree on everything. So whether it's a lifestyle or whether it's what we eat, there will be a difference. But it's okay to be different. It needn't be that everyone follows a line. Life would be very boring if they did.
Right.
So if there's an argument which is not working out and it's not coming to any conclusion, leave it at one place and revisit it later. Don't reach it to a stage where you're screaming your lungs out at each other because it gets you nothing. That is
And
something
Like
which
in
is
another,
very
school,
important.
in
and
school we
another,
are taught that every question has to have an answer. There need not be any answer for many
Yes,
questions.
yes,
Right.
yes,
Very
and
true.
another thing is all of us kind of express how we are how we should be treated when we are in the most depressed state. When we are fine, we end up going and doing the things we like. We never have conversations about what we have to do when we are not okay. We end up going and doing things we like because we feel we are lucky, we are happy, and we have that period of happiness. So let's do what we like. So when we are in the depressed state or when we are sad, that's when we yell and shout, and the whole miscommunication happens at that particular time. So I think that's
Communication.
also, yeah. So communication at the end of the day is the whole
Most
point of the,
important. Yeah.
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 Communication is
I
very
think we need to
important.
have more spaces like this where we open up dialogue, where we have these conversations, remove the taboo around this, and definitely break some myths. Because I think there are several people when I've told them I'm bipolar, they thought I'm bisexual, and or that I'm autistic, or that I'm transgender, because they don't understand the word bipolar. It is that ridiculous. So I think spreading awareness is really, really important. Breaking taboo is important. We need to start these conversations, and nothing
And
better than
also
this
being
month, right?
non-judgmental, and also being
Yes,
Absolutely,
yes,
non-judgmental. Yeah.
absolutely.
absolutely.
On that note, thank you so much, Kalpana, Chris, and Sangeeta. Thank you a
Thank
lot for
you.
being on this panel. It was really
My
amazing
pleasure.
talking to all of you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
Thank
And
much.
you.
if
Have a good
anybody has any
evening.
questions, please post it on the wall, and one of them will answer it when they're free. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.